Everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me, as always, for this post game, it is the one and only JP Zapata. Charlie O'Connor will be here in a little bit. I can now take off the dog mask and return to being your director of fun and games. It's getting easier to read. I've found like a hole in the mask that I can just look through and make sure. I could probably do this. I'm horrible at memorizing lines. So like, yeah, it's like a 2-sentence thing that I've read 100 times. No, it's not going to stick. But the company NMLS ID number, I'm never going to memorize that. So I have to read it, and it's difficult through that mask where there's no real no real eye holes or anything. Yeah, so check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY. Do that. They sponsor each and every PHLY Flyers, and especially big wins is when you should be hitting up Mortgage CS. But absolutely. I am excited after tonight's win, a 4-1 victory over the Winnipeg Jets. And Winnipeg dominated 2 periods of this game with about 4.5 minutes left. JJ noted on the broadcast, there were games during the 5-game losing streak prior to the All-Star break. The Flyers played better than they did tonight, but they got enough offense in the first period, 3 first-period goals. TK has the Gordie How Hat Trick in like 4 minutes of ice time. Goal and assist in a fight. They get the shorthanded goal to start the second period, and that was pretty much it. Sam Ersson comes up 5 minutes short of a 120-minute shutout of the Winnipeg Jets, a full season shutout of the Jets. Short. But they give one up with a little more than 5 minutes left in the game, so that was a bummer. But I'm really interested to talk to Charlie about the mood after this one.
Yeah.
You know, the Florida game, first game out of the break, they got their asses kicked in the first period, and it was the Sam Ersson show. That's why they won the game. Tonight, great first period, nothing after that. I think they had 7 shots on goal in the final 40 minutes of this game. Luckily, one of them went in, but it was another solid effort out of the goaltender, and this time to close it out that wins them the game. Just what was your initial takeaway? First, biggest thing you thought of after watching 60 minutes of Flyers hockey tonight?
Honestly, I thought of Charlie O'Connor. Because before we went into the break, what was Charlie telling us during the 5-game losing streak? That this team may be suffering from, just a little bit of fatigue. It's a lot of games that they played. They've been working their ass off early parts throughout the season. There may be some injuries in there as well. And just look at the difference that a break does, Bill. This team tonight and on Tuesday against Florida, yes, you're right. Like, they didn't look perfect throughout, but you can clearly tell these guys look fresh. These guys have that extra step. These guys are fighting throughout the full 3 periods. So honestly, I'm just noticing that the break really helped because this team looks like the team that we saw earlier parts of the year. And if that's the case, I don't know, guys. Parade back.
Listen, it's going to be funny because we're going to be like, after some of those losses, we were still positive during that 5-game losing streak. And tonight, like, when we get Charlie, I'm going to ask him some questions about, like, what was the mood like? Because I can't imagine the coach was happy with the final 40 minutes of this game. But you did just beat a Winnipeg Jets team that, yes, they were without Connor Hellebuck tonight.
Right.
Also, the Flyers never have their number 1 goalie. I'm loving what I'm seeing out of Sam Ersson, but this was not the plan coming into the season. And Winnipeg came into tonight's game second in the West by points percentage, third in the NHL. They're behind only Vancouver in the West, Boston in the East in total points percentage before tonight. But they had lost 4 straight and 5 out of 7. Now it's 5 in a row and 6 of 8. So they're on a bit of a skid right now. But they're a really good team. They're adding at the deadline. They are trying to win a very tough division that includes Dallas and Colorado. In anyone's top 5 teams in the league, probably, especially coming into the year. Charlie has Dallas winning the Cup this year. Colorado, we know how good they are.
Yeah.
So this is kind of just hockey sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you play well and lose. Sometimes you win 4-1, and it's like you lost 40 minutes of a 60-minute game. But they win where it matters on the scoreboard. I'm gonna say I take this one. You know, I'm absolutely gonna take this one. Like JJ said, They've played better games and lost, and they win kind of convincingly based on the scoreboard tonight. But you beat a really good team, and the more this keeps happening, I mean, you've beaten the Jets twice. You beat Florida to come out of the break. You've beaten Colorado this year. You've beaten Vegas this year. I know they had that skid. They got killed by Boston. The 2 MVPs of the league in Nathan McKinnon and Nikita Kucherov beat the shit out of them going into the break, but they seem to play really well against really good teams, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, one point I wanted to bring up, because obviously big difference in this game is that, like you mentioned, no Hellebuyck, Brossoit was in net here today. But we mentioned it while we're watching the game, like, Winnipeg's defense is really good. Like, Brossoit still has like a .923 save percentage. But this Flyers team tonight, like, they were flying all throughout the night. And you even look at some of these goals, like that first one, when you had Poehling and you had Forrester outbeating everyone in the neutral zone to get that goal. Like, that was pretty much the storyline of this game right there.
And that's even the that first goal. Initially, I'm chalking it up to, like, what the hell's Brossoit doing? Okay, well, this is the advantage when Hellebuyck isn't in net. But you see the replay, and, like, I see what he's thinking. Like, goalies are afraid because teams. We've seen it against the Flyers. Like, teams aren't afraid to take those kind of bad angles, short side shots, and see if they can get lucky.
Yeah, Velarde got caught looking too.
Yeah, and Brossoit, like, seems like he's defending against that on the first goal, and Poehling's able to send it out in front, and Forster slams it home. You got to finish your chances. Nice. It's a great chance. But really, they just beat the defense. And it's Gabe Velarde coming back. I see what Brossoit's thinking. Like, all right, Velarde is right next to Forster. He's going to tie him up. There's no way this pass.
You got me, buddy, right?
Yeah, like there's no way this pass is getting through, and he just kind of drifts away from the puck, and puck goes in. So I don't even know if that one's really on the goalie as much as it is the team defense, and their team defense is good. So I chalk that up to a good play for the Flyers. But where I want to start tonight is Travis Konecny, and I can't wait again to talk to Charlie because we're going to bring up the captaincy in a minute. But we've been talking a lot over the last week or two about the possibility of trading TK.
We have.
And really where he fits with where the team is and where they're going in the long term, because everyone in the organization keeps telling us, yeah, we're enjoying what we're seeing right now, and also we're focused on the future. We are focused on this rebuild. And you got to believe a dude like TK would net you a hell of a return, especially being signed through next year at only $5.5 million. He's got 24 goals on the season. There's still 30 games left, you know? But he means so much to this team.
He does.
I would hate to see him get away. And you see everything he brings in the first period. A goal, an assist, and a fight. And it wasn't just like, oh, okay, a couple guys get tied up. Like, no, they were interested in fighting. TK dropped his gloves and wanted to go. It was
right away.
You just see everything he brings to this team, and I cannot imagine moving on from TK at this point.
Well, we talk about like what we're trying to do right now in this rebuild. It's setting that culture. I mean, Bill, who better to set the culture than this guy, Travis Konecny?
He's the guy.
Literally.
I mean, he is the guy for this team.
Scores goals, does the dirty work, will fight if need be. He is who you want to follow if you're one of those guys in that locker room.
He is extension eligible on July 1st. You can sign an extension 1 year before your contract expires. That is for him this offseason. Elliot Friedman's 32 Thoughts column came out like last night at around 8:30, I think. They're trying to get all the work on this contract extension done so that on July 1st, are the Flyers probably going to be big players in free agency this year? I doubt it. It seems like there's going to be an announcement on July 1st about at least one guy, and it's going to be Travis Konecny. And I don't know if it's the smartest move for the rebuild, but you need guys like him, man. That's if they're going to be good in 2 to 3 years. You know who they're going to be looking for if they don't re-sign TK? A dude exactly like him. He can play on your first or second line. He can be productive. He can carry a line in terms of the actual goal scoring. He's a rat out there, and tonight we see he's not just a rat. Oh, he'll go too. He landed a couple punches. I was just so excited by the game he had tonight and the timeliness of it. 23 hours prior, Elliot Friedman is writing, oh yeah, they're going to resign this guy as soon as humanly possible, and he showed you every reason why tonight. I'm really excited about that.
So I guess the question is, Bill, what happened during the All-Star game? This man comes back, 2 straight great games. This man caught the McDavids or something?
TK going into the break was one of the guys I thought just really needed the reset. Like, he's banged up, he's tired, he's been running, whatever the situation may be. He needed the break. And now they got plenty of time with or without playing in the All-Star game. But I was like, God damn, the one guy I don't need to see out there is TK. But, it's the All-Star game. It's not like he's going to get hit or anything. And he has responded huge coming off that break. And like you said, the whole team has. Whether it's the final 2 periods of the game against Florida or tonight's first period, they are showing the energy and the work ethic of the team that put themselves in playoff position through the first 45 games of the season.
Okay. All right. Another question I do want, and I want to ask Charlie this as well. But Bill, when do we start adding TK into some elite conversations here? Because the numbers are starting to speak for themselves.
He's got 24 goals through 30 games. There was a point in his career where he scored 24 goals 3 straight seasons.
Right.
And it was like, all right, this is who he is. One of those years was, I think, the third year of those was the COVID year, so it gets cut short. He would have had well over 30 probably. For sure. But you're looking like, okay, he's a mid-20s goal scorer. He's a real nice second-line player. Last year, he scores 31 in 60 games, and you go, what is the ceiling for this guy? And this year, he's already at that 24-goal mark that looked like might be his plateau at one point, and plenty of time left to add to that. You got to believe he's going to get to 35-ish at least. Man, I don't know if I can look at him. I mean, I can't call him an elite player the way, we've watched recently Nathan McKinnon. We've watched Nikita Kucherov. Those guys.
For sure, not better.
There's only a limited supply of those dudes. He's probably not one of them. But I look at the Taylor Hall's MVP year, and was he the best player in the league that year? No. But he won the MVP because he was by far the most important dude on a Devils team that did not belong in the playoffs otherwise, and that's what I'm looking at with TK right now. It's he's not gonna factor into the MVP voting. That's not gonna happen. But you look at what he's doing for this team, and he is as important to the Flyers as any single guy is to any team in this league.
Yeah, no, and the way this Flyers team plays, it's very much to the demeanor of Travis Konecny too. I don't think he's obviously better than McDavid, Kucherovs of the world, but he somehow is teetering in that top 10 range. And with his play this year, and we're talking about contract extensions. And the thing is, Bill, I don't even think that he's close to what his full potential is. I still think that there's more room for growth here. This team is exciting, especially if it could be surrounded around TK of some sort as well.
It really, really is exciting. And if you want to see that excitement up close, you want to go check out a Flyers game. They have 2 more home games coming up before they hit the road next week. I'm telling you, man, you should probably check out Game Time to do that. And there's a lot going on at Game Time right now. I got to tell you, if you're heading to Vegas, you see the party going on there for the big game on Sunday. It looks like a hell of a time right now. You're like, damn it, I'm doing it. Well, great time to be a user of the Game Time app. So you go to Vegas, you could always use a little extra cash. Well, they're here to give it to you. If you buy a big game ticket using code VEGAS100, VEGAS 100, you get $100 off your big game ticket. Who couldn't use an extra $100 when they're in Vegas? But don't worry. Do not worry. If maybe you're, I'm not quite, I don't think I'm going to that big game out in Las Vegas. we still have you covered. Code PHLY, get you those $20 off. And you know why I love the Game Time app. First and foremost, it's straightforward. You open it up, you find the event you want to go to. You don't have to click 6 times and then finally be on like, okay, well, now I'm ready to check out. Oh, here's a bunch of extra fees I wasn't planning on going. But in your head, you're like, well, I'm already going in my head. I'm going to spend it anyway. No, Game Time tells you what the hell the ticket's actually going to cost right away. There's no silly mind games they're playing with you. That's Game Time. And you know about that Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, they'll make up 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Right now, all Game Time users get $100 off a big game ticket with code VEGAS100. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app and use code VEGAS100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the big game, use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
I love the way you read ads because, like, you give us these real-life situations that, like, no one ever talks about because, like, I've been there before. I'm like, fuck, all right, well, I'm going to go anyways. I'm just buying
it. No, it's in your head. You've already made the decision. And then I'm like, so, Ave, remember how I was like, I'm going to this thing. It's going to be like $30. Yeah, it turns out it's like 75. So just write that into our budget. Like, what, the fee was more than the ticket? Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I'd already made up my mind. Literally. But that's never an issue with Game Time. Let's get back to tonight's game now.
Let's do it.
TK was a huge part of it. Really enjoying what he is becoming and very excited to see how the final 30 games of the season go for him. If he can stay hot, maybe get back on that 40-goal pace.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Ersson, though, first period of the Florida game, like I said, you can't win a game. I guess you can. The Flyers won a game in the first period tonight. But they could have easily, the first game out of the break could have gone the way of the Boston game leading into the break, where it's like, yeah, it's 3-4-0. You lose. That was not the case. He kept them in it in the first, and tonight he closes out the game. I go back to, it was January, I think, 13th. Sam Ersson, 35 save shutout against the Jets. He stopped 19 of 19 through 40 minutes tonight. The Jets scored on the 25th shot of tonight's game. Ersson stopped 59 straight Winnipeg shots before they beat him. They beat him just the once. I have to imagine this kid's confidence is just growing by the day. You know, I don't think he's at 40 career starts yet. He has been absolutely tremendous for this team for basically the whole season. He had the slow start. His numbers dipped a little leading into the break, but honestly, no fault of his own, really. And tonight he comes out, plays another A game. It's hard not to be impressed with what you're seeing out of a dude who was supposed to be the backup this year.
And another player who benefited from the break because, like you mentioned, in that losing streak, there were some goals where you're like, Ersson probably could have had that. The defense probably could have helped you out a little bit more. But this, I think right now, what you're seeing these two games is what Ersson is. You're going to have opportunities where Ersson is going to keep you in the game, or in some cases win you the game, and you just gotta actually put some effort and help him out a little bit. So this to me is exactly what Ersson is gonna be, and if that's the case, the sky's the limit. But yes, confidence is brewing with him. Again, huge night against the Jets team, which, I mean, obviously we talk about it. It is pretty dangerous, and they had some good opportunities, especially in that second, third period.
Even in the first, blocker. Like the shots weren't many, but every now and then, the way the Flyers play, they're aggressive when they're at their best. They're attacking. When you attack, sometimes there's going to be chances the other way, and that's just the world we live in. You need goaltending to come up big for you in those opportunities, and that's exactly what Ersson's been doing the last couple of nights. We've been talking about his workload a little bit.
Yeah.
Last year, he had, I think it was 52 total appearances. Now, I did have someone, when we talked about his workload on yesterday's show, someone hit me up and was like, you know, he did seem to wear down at the end of the year with the Phantoms last year. And that's true to some extent. Also, the Phantoms stunk, especially defensively. And when he came up to the Flyers, outside of his final game of the year, where they were just like, yeah, you're staying in. Sorry, we gave up 7 goals. We played like shit in front of you. You got lit up. Not really your fault. Like, he played pretty damn well last year after being worn down. As long as he's going to, you know, the coaching staff and saying, no, I'm good. I'm not tired. Nothing bothering me. Don't have a little groin tightness or anything. I think you just got to keep running him out there. The schedule for the for these final 30 games isn't the most taxing thing you've ever seen. They have 3 back-to-backs. Only one of those 3 back-to-backs is actually a 3 and 4 when you go like, all right, well, this is a lot. Like, they sprinted to those first 50 games of the season. Now the final 30, 32 are pretty well spread out. I think you could see him start like 25 or more of these final 30 games left. I'm excited to see what the kid has. I think he might. This situation with Carter Hart is fucked up for so many reasons. It is, however, an opportunity for Sam Ersson to show he's more than what the plan was. It looks like it's working out for him right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'd be lying if I told you I'm not concerned about the wear and tear throughout the season and the amount he's playing. I will say, though, we are exactly a month away. Obviously, we had a crazy NBA trade deadline. Hopefully, we don't have a crazy one for the NHL and the Flyers. But we are a month away from that. I am curious to see how much we will see of Cal Peterson and see if the Flyers do decide to roll with him as a backup for the rest of the year, because that is important. I mean, yeah, Ayers is someone who definitely wants to get every start. And, of course, you want to roll him out there. But, of course, you do want to keep in mind that we do need to find out as well what Cal Peterson is, too.
At least, like, what they do in net for the final, from March 9th through mid-April when the season ends, might just depend on how much action they actually have at the trade deadline. Like, if they sell half the team, there's no reason to run Ersson out there and just be like, well, we're going to run you into the ground. But if it's only, it's going to be Sean Walker, maybe 1 or 2 other guys, we're still trying to make the playoffs, though, it's going to be Ersson. Like, it's going to continue that workload, but we have a month to get there. So we'll see how this next month goes. And now it is time to welcome in Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter. It is live from the Wells Fargo Center, Charlie O'Connor. Charlie, how are you tonight?
Doing okay. The first period was great. Just dealt with a very angry John Tortorella despite a 4-1 victory, so that happened.
I was wondering, I said to start the show, with like 4.5 minutes left in the game on the broadcast, JJ says, the Flyers are going to win, but we saw games during that 5-game losing streak in which they played considerably better than they did, especially over the final 40 minutes tonight. And I wanted to know, what the mood was, especially of the coach, but also in the locker room. They weren't very good after the first period tonight. How was everyone feeling with a 4-1 win that wasn't all that pretty?
Well, you had a couple players, definitely. I think it was Travis Konecny and Scott Laughton in particular, said after the game that, we need to be better than we were in the final 2 periods. They brought it up kind of unprompted, which probably should have been a telltale sign that they probably got reamed out by John Tortorella in the locker room after the game for the way the team played the final 40 minutes. But I guess I wasn't expecting a vintage 60-second John Tortorella post-game presser after a 4-1 victory. But we got some one-word answers. The first question was, what did you see over the final 2 periods? And John Tortorella did not really even say a word. He just held up a hand, 0. So he was very, very unhappy about the way they played this game. And look, I'm not going to say they played a perfect game by any means. That said, when you go up, 3-0, 4-0 that early, I think it's natural for a team to take their foot off the gas a little bit, especially when Winnipeg was giving so little in that first period. Like, Winnipeg did not show up to play this game. They looked horrible. They were a mess. And I think the Flyers maybe just coasted a little bit. And I get why John Tortorella was so angry, because that's the last thing he wants this team doing. It's the last kind of habit he wants them falling into. I was just a little surprised that he was that ticked off about a 4-1 win.
Do you think this was, now they have, 8 shots on goal for the final 40 minutes. Like, that's not enough. No matter what the score is, you want to play. It's hard not to go into prevent defense. I understand when you have a 3-4 goal lead, but whole lot of hockey left after they score that 4th goal, and they didn't seem all that interested in adding on. Do you think this was just a case of score effect, or was it the Flyers just ran out of gas after such a strong first period? What the hell happened?
I mean, score effects are very clearly part of this.
Yeah.
You do naturally fall back a little bit. The other team takes more risks, but clearly John Tortorella does not think that score effects were the primary reason for the fact that the team sat back in the second and third. To him, it was, symptomatic of a deeper problem. And To me, this is more just towards being a little theatrical and him looking at, I don't want the team to think that this game, despite the score, that this game was acceptable, because for 20 minutes it was acceptable. For the other 40, it was not, and they're not going to win many games if they play the way they did over the final 40. I think that's more or less the point he was trying to make, and he probably came off as something of a dick, not just to the media, but to the players after this game. But that was intentional because he doesn't want them to start even subconsciously thinking that this 60-minute effort is enough to win a lot of games.
Well, I gotta believe you appreciated that, Charlie. Process over results, right? Like this is how you would act if you were the coach of a team that won 4-1 but didn't look great. So
yeah,
you
definitely.
and John Tortorella, you're meshing more each and every day that you cover this team. I have to ask now about Travis Konecny's game tonight. Especially that, he gets 4 minutes of ice time, I think, in the first period, records a Gordie How hat trick. I don't know if I've ever seen that before, but last night, around like 9 o'clock, I think, Elliot Friedman puts out the 32 thoughts. And in it, he mentions, TK can't sign an extension till July 1st, but they're going to have all the pre-work done. And it's almost, I won't say a foregone conclusion, but the Flyers are going to do everything they can on July 1st to make the announcement that Travis Konecny is here beyond next season. I got to ask you, Chuck, if that happens, do you believe not only do they sign a contract, but they sew a C on his sweater?
Oh God, I'm really going with this. I don't know. That's really just going to depend on what John Tortorella thinks, because they are giving him, full power to decide the way the leadership course should be structured. That said, I asked multiple players. I asked Scott Laughton, who is the de facto team captain, if the rest of the team looks to Travis Konecny as kind of the energy catalyst, and he more or less said, yeah. He really, since he's taken the leap as a player, Laughton said that he has been the driver of this team, that he's been their best player for a little bit here, and I don't know. Look, I know everybody obsesses over the captaincy. It honestly annoys me because I don't think it's nearly as big of a deal as people make it out to be. That said, it does matter to the players. I'm sure Travis Konecny would love wearing the C. I don't think it necessarily has to be him. I think at some point he's absolutely going to have a letter. I think that he is very much a team leader, whether it's an A or the C. To me, that doesn't matter that much. I know it matters to a lot of people. But the one thing I can't deny is that he is absolutely one of the key leaders of this team. And he is, definitely their best player, but he's also the guy who is more and more often the one who's bringing people into the fight, which is the sign of a leader.
Now, Charlie, if we don't have someone with the C on the sweater, who do we blame for losses then?
Exactly, which is why I am totally fine with them not having anyone with the C, so then fans don't get irrationally angry at one person.
Well, Charlie, it's good seeing you. I started off today's post game by giving you props, because during the losing streak, one thing you were adamant about was that this team is in dire needs of the break. And in these two games, you can clearly tell that break was much needed because they look so much better, Charlie.
Yeah, they do. Especially in the first period. I think they played, obviously the first period against Florida wasn't great. Then the final two periods I thought were fantastic. And then the first period tonight was, again, fantastic. Like, I don't think Winnipeg was ready to play this game, but I don't want to take away from what the Flyers did. Winnipeg was not ready to play. The Flyers were extremely ready to play. And what you saw was what happens when that combination hits on the ice in an NHL game. One team leaves the intermission, or leaves the ice to go off to intermission up 3-0. Those 3 periods out of the 6, they've played really, really well. Do I think they have another level beyond this? Sure, because they could have done this in 6 of 6 periods rather than 3 of 6 periods. But I do think that there are some key guys in particular that really look refreshed. I think Travis Konecny, top of the list. He looks like a totally different guy than the guy he was in those, even dating back to before the 5-game losing streak. I thought during the 5-game winning streak, he wasn't even one of their best players. His game had started to tail off. He just looks healthy. He looks like he has jump. He's skating better. He's attacking more. So I think he really benefited from it. I think Noah Cates benefited from it. He almost had another goal tonight. It just seems like he had a good reset. Sam Ersson, I think, was maybe able to, just put himself in the frame of mind that I'm the guy. It wasn't as thrown upon him as it seemed to be, after obviously everything with regards to Carter Hart. He was able to get a week to kind of get himself in the mentality of, I am now the number one of this team. I have to step up. And he just seems like tonight, I mean, Travis Konecny is going to be my first star, but Sam Ersson very well could have been. He was great too. Like in the final 40 minutes, he was the Flyers' best player by a significant margin. So I do think that the break has helped. That said, I'm not going to give them too much credit, just as I wasn't burying them when they were in the midst of the 5-game losing streak. I'm not going to put them on a pedestal after this 2-game winning streak, because I think they've only had 3 out of 6 really good periods. But I do think the break has very clearly helped this team, without a doubt, especially given the teams they've beaten. I mean, Florida and Winnipeg are good teams.
Charlie, I can't believe you just made the mistake you've made. It is not a 2-game winning streak. Lou Brown clearly told us it's 2 in a row. 3 is a winning streak, but I'll let it go because you've been working hard. But it
has happened before.
You mentioned the teams that they've. It has happened before. You mentioned the teams that they've beaten, and they beat Florida despite the bad first period. They killed them for the final 40 the other night. That's a great team coming into tonight. Winnipeg, despite having lost 4 straight before, they're still second in the West by points percentage, third in the NHL overall by points percentage. We made note earlier this week about some of the teams they've beaten. They've beaten Colorado. They've beaten Carolina. They've beaten Vancouver twice. They've beaten Edmonton. Outside of that 5-game losing streak, they've played really well against some really good teams. How do you account for that? Like, I know we don't believe even if they get in the playoffs, they have much chance of making noise, but they just keep beating good teams.
Yeah, I think when their top players are playing very well, they can play with anybody, because that's the thing. We've talked about it all year. We've talked about it ad nauseum, really, is just that the big flaw with this team is their lack of high-end talent. The thing is that when Travis Konecny outplays Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, that's not as big of an issue. When Sean Couturier looks like Sean Couturier can shut down a top line, that's not that big of an issue. It's just they need their guys. They need Konecny, Couturier, Sanheim, Tippett. They need those guys to look like high-end guys. Now, I don't think they are on the level of, the McKinnons, the Kucherovs, the Pasternoks that were tearing the Flyers up over that 5-game losing streak. But in individual games, they can deliver really, really strong performances. And I think what you're seeing over these last couple games is that a guy like Konecny has kicked it back up into that top gear. Sean Couturier looks more like himself. I know he really hasn't been too involved offensively, but he doesn't look like he's outmatched like he did in those final few games before the break. I think that's really the key here, is if the Flyers are going to keep playing what I believe is a little bit over their heads, it's going to have to be due to the top-end guys performing maybe better than I think they are. And the longer they keep doing that, the more I'm going to think maybe they are actually that good. But I think that's really the key here, is the reason why they got destroyed by Boston, by Colorado, by Tampa, and got torn up, in terms of allowing goals to those guys, is because the Flyers' top-end guys didn't match them. Tonight, the Flyers' top-end guys matched them, and Travis Konecny outplayed them all, at least in the first period.
Hey, Charlie, I don't know if you had anything, but I noticed Jamie Drysdale kind of slow getting off the ice there. When Dylan DeMillo tripped him in the third period. Any word on in that, if he's fine or not?
No, I mean, I didn't notice anything that was terribly concerning. The one thing that was interesting, and I was planning to ask John Tortorella this, but given the fact that he wasn't giving anything more than 3-word answers, it really wasn't even worth it. I'll probably ask him tomorrow. Cam Atkinson was benched the entire third period. He got a shift in with about 5 minutes to go, took an icing, and then he didn't see the ice the rest of the game and was taking on that Joel Farabee role of opening and closing the bench door for everybody throughout the entirety of the third period. So it probably speaks to the frustration that John Tortorella had with the team, that he believes that the team had a lot more to give in those final 2 periods, and he sat Cam Atkinson to try to send a message, and maybe he was frustrated that that message, at least in his mind, wasn't received as well as he wanted it to be, given the status of the guy he sat in Cam Atkinson. But no, I think Drysdale's probably fine. The Atkinson benching, though, little interesting, not going to lie.
Certainly is. He was one of the guys, like, pregame when I'm just putting the outline together, I'm like, we've been talking on and off about Atkinson. He scored a little more, but just hasn't really looked like himself. And I did find myself on Cap Friendly this afternoon, like, what does a buyout look like? It just hasn't been going great for Cam Atkinson. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. When he was scratched a couple of weeks ago, John Tortorella said, I have too much respect for this player to let him keep going down this road. And maybe that's kind of what the benching is. Like, I'm not going to let you look like shit out there because I respect you. But at a certain point, you're going to have to figure something out with Cam Atkinson, some guy who is getting a little bit more playing time than I think a lot of us expected coming into this year, Charlie. Ryan Poehling scores the big shorthanded goal to put the team up 4-0 early in the second. One of the few, final 40 shots they actually had on goal. It goes in. Torts didn't say much post-game, but in his post-practice press conference today, a considerable amount of time was spent discussing Ryan Poehling. He has a goal and an assist tonight. What are you seeing out of Poehling right now?
He's playing well. I still am of the opinion that he's ideally not a top 9 forward. I think he's a fourth liner, but he can be a darn good fourth liner. I think, and this is actually going to be in a piece I'm working on for tomorrow. Partially a game story, but a lot on Scott Laughton, because I had a chance to talk with Scott after practice today, talk to him about the trade rumors and whatnot. And I do think that Ryan Poehling's emergence as a quality, I wouldn't say he's a quality top 9 forward, but he's a quality every night NHL forward. I think that it does make Scott Laughton a little bit less essential. And I think on some level, Scott Laughton probably realizes that, because Poehling, more or less, you can sort of play the same role. Now, I think in terms of true talent right now, I know Laughton's having a bad year. I think Scott Laughton is still the better player. However, Laughton is older. Ryan Poehling presumably could still get a bit better. I mean, Scott Laughton got better in his mid to late 20s too. So I just think that Poehling's emergence as a quality player, he plays faster than Scott Laughton because he's a better skater. Not that Laughton's slow, but Poehling is legitimately quick. I just think that Poehling is, if these trade rumors with Laughton do ultimately pan out and somebody coughs up a first-round pick for him at the deadline, or maybe they move him in the offseason, I have to believe that the emergence of Poehling as someone who could theoretically play Laughton's role, it's probably a significant part of it.
Charlie, I wanted to ask about the home record. Obviously, here in Philly, we take pride in home field, home court, home ice advantage. They're clearly a better team on the road. They're now 12-12-2 at home now. For you, do you make anything of the record at home, or anything that they could improve upon at home?
Not really, to be honest with you. I think it's probably fair to say that, at least until the most recent little stretch, I guess over the last 3, it's not like these home crowds were all that good. So they might not have been getting that big of a boost from the home crowd when there's 5,000 seats empty. Obviously, that's changed over the last month. I know their most recent little stand, if you want to call it that, before the All-Star break, they obviously lost a lot of games. I just think that was them being exhausted. I don't think that was because they weren't taking advantage of the home ice. I'm generally not a person who puts all that much stock in home versus road splits. I never really have been. Look, they want to be better at home. I'm sure they want to win more games for their home crowd, to be sure. But it's hard for me to point to one thing as an explanation. Maybe there are some games they don't come out with, they come out with a little bit too much energy because they're trying to impress the crowd. Maybe there's other games on the road where they feel like their backs are up against the wall, so they play harder. I don't know. But this is all just me, theorizing about bullshit. To me, that's the bulk of home road splits, is just us coming up with theories that sound good on on a television show or on the radio and an analysis, but in reality we have no evidence for any of it, which is why I tend to try to avoid it. They should win more home games. They won this game, but it's not something I'm going to dwell on too much.
All right, Charlie, we're getting a little bit of microphone interference, so let's see if we can get into your 3 stars of the game, and then I'll let you go. Let's lead it off with star number 3.
Sure. Star number 3 is Ryan Poehling, who we just talked about. But Big shorthanded goal. Obviously, the Flyers' PK has been fantastic at creating chances. Poehling sets up the Tyson Forster goal to kick everything off in the first with a really good pass and also really good speed coming into the zone, using that high end speed of his. So Poehling, I think, just had an all-around solid game. Ended up finishing third in ice time. Tortorella even gave him a look on a 5-on-3, which Poehling laughed about after the game and said, "Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, but hey, I'll take it." They almost scored on it, so he almost was able to maybe earn himself another look on a 5-on-3. But I think Poehling had a strong game. Obviously, everybody was best in the first period, at least all the skaters. But Poehling was the only guy to do anything of real note in the final 40 minutes, and for that, at the very least, I will give him the third star.
Yeah, I was really into that mid to late third period 5-on-3 power play unit of Poehling, Zamula, Cates, Tippett, and York. That was fun. And they also had the best power play chance of the game for the Flyers. So what the hell, you know? Let's go to star number 2.
Star number 2 is Sam Ersson, the starting goalie, the Flyers' best player over the final 40 minutes of the game. 29 shots, 28 saves. We're looking at a .966 save percentage. I would say he has completely shaken off what was a moderately underwhelming close to that pre-All-Star break section of the schedule for him. I just think that he's on point. I don't think he was ever playing terribly during that run. That 5-game losing streak, but I do think that he gave up some weak goals, and it just seems like he solidified himself and at the perfect time, given the fact that he is now the Flyers' number 1 goalie. I'm not even going to say de facto number 1 goalie. He is their number 1 goalie. He will probably be their number 1 goalie the rest of the season as long as he stays healthy. And so far out of the break, he's doing exactly what you want a number 1 goalie to do. He's holding down the fort.
Let's close it out with star number 1.
I mean, how could I give it to anybody else other than the guy who got the Gordie How Hat Trick the first period? It's Travis Konecny, and maybe he didn't play his best hockey over the final 40, but he was able to squeeze a game's worth of impact into, I think, like 4 minutes of ice time, which is wild. Look, Konecny is the Flyers' best player. Everybody knows it. He is their impact guy, and he took over that first period. He obviously fights Neil Pionk. I think he won that fight. Juices up the guys on the bench without a doubt. I think Ryan Poehling said after the game he didn't really even know that Travis Konecny could fight, so that was news to him. But Konecny kind of did it all in the first period. He was the catalyst, and they coast after the first 20? Yeah, I would say they did, but they were able to coast because Travis Konecny was just that damn good first. So Travis Konecny, first star, without a doubt.
All right, Charlie. Thank you very much. We will be back with Charlie O'Connor after Saturday's game, so look forward to that. I will talk to you then, Charlie.
All right.
Thanks, Charlie.
Good. Thanks, guys.
All right. That was Charlie O'Connor, and thank you very much for hanging with us through the ongoing microphone issues that continue to plague the post-game show and Charlie O'Connor's live hits. I apologize for the interference. We are going to get this worked out at some point. We're gonna get it figured out at some point or another. I know it was early in the season. We just couldn't get him connected, and then it was good for a while. Now we're having some sort of microphone issue with Charlie, but we're going to get this worked out, and thank you all for hanging with us. But
Thanks,
let me take a second to tell you about PHLY Sports Trips. That's right. We are off to Clearwater with PHLY Sports Trips for our very first PHLY spring training takeover. There is a whole lot in store for everyone who books this trip through PHLY. It's all PHLY.com/events to book your trip. First and foremost, you get to hang out with Philly's legendary manager, the all-time winningest manager in Philly's history, Charlie Manuel. He is going to be a part of this. The entire experience is planned out for you, from the flights to hotels, game tickets, and transportations. And it's over St. Patty's Day. That's right. This trip takes place over St. Patrick's Day. I'm trying to find the exact dates, and it's like not right in front of me. Here it is, March 13th to the 18th. So on March 17th, as part of this trip, spend St. Patty's Day on a private yacht with catered dinner and drinks. That's all part of it. It's going to be an absolute blast. So be on the lookout for even more events throughout the year with PHLY Sports Trips. But you're going to want to get in on this one for spring training. We know Hope springs eternal. It's going to be really, really fun. So our trip, March 13th to the 18th. Don't wait to book. Get in now. Head to allphly.com/events to learn more and book your trip. A couple more things before we wrap up tonight's show. Wanted to get into with Charlie. Maybe we'll get a chance on Saturday. We'll see if Rasmus Ristolainen remains sick. Now, I'm putting sick in quotes mostly as a joke because a lot of areas of this Flyers organization that have turned over, I am giving the benefit of the doubt to, but I will not. They just have to, more time has to pass before I actually trust the injury reporting and the reasons guys miss games, how long they're going to be out, whatever. But as of right now, I mean, like, it doesn't seem as if he's sick. It just seems, or it does seem as if he's probably just sick. But it is a little bit interesting timing with all of a sudden, for a while there, it was, all right, it's going to be Walker definitely traded. They want to re-sign Sealer, but we'll see. Morgan Frost's name's out there. Scott Laughton's name's out there. We've heard TK, but it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. Risto is popping up again in the trade rumors. There's teams like Toronto attached, right. Edmonton attached, even Vancouver, which I want to see him personally go to Vancouver because they already have Tyler Myers. They traded for Nikita Zadorov, adding Rasmus Ristolainen. I don't know this to be a fact, but I have to believe that's the tallest decor ever assembled. But you see sometimes as the trade deadline approaches, and it's still a month away, but his name's popping up, and they're actually like, okay, these teams have inquired. You protect a guy from injury by not playing him. Do you think there might be a little something to that?
It's going to be interesting. I mean, the talent is there for a team to come here and propose a trade for Ristolainen, but you mentioned it, like the contract makes it extremely difficult. I'm curious to see who does go first as far as it's, because you do, like you mentioned, it's Walker, it's Sealer, it's Risto, these three that you're just questioning whether they will be here past the deadline. I want to believe that Walker is going to be the guy that for sure will be gone, but Risto does make it interesting, and of course, we do have to thank Chuck Fletcher for giving him that great contract that makes it so easy to move him out of here.
Yeah.
But no, Risto to me, I would obviously love to keep him past this year. I think he's done a great job of developing under John Tortorella. He's loving Philly as well. He's looked much better since coming here from Buffalo. But contract is going to make it really difficult, Bill.
It was interesting to see. I just looked at Mark Stahl's game logs. Mark Stahl comes in tonight.
That was fun.
He has not played since January 13th against these Winnipeg Jets. Was his last time in the lineup. He comes in tonight, plays 13 minutes and 12 seconds. He is once again clearly, well, he and Zamula kind of played similar minutes tonight, but basically he's the 7 in the 7-man rotation again when he does actually draw in. He and Zamula are the only minus defenders tonight. They're on the ice for Winnipeg's only goal. I got to tell you though, I didn't think Mark Stahl was all that bad. I can't imagine a team's going to give you anything substantial for him. He doesn't. The Flyers play 7 defensemen on a regular basis, and he ain't one of them. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine a team with like, oh yeah, we're going to try to win a cup, and we're going to do it by giving you a first-round pick for Mark. Like that's not going to happen. But if a team's looking to add depth, you could do a lot worse than veteran Mark Stahl. I thought he was decent enough tonight.
I have to expect that you can get something from him for a guy who's been in this league forever. And he's been a big part of the culture here, too, especially with the young defensemen that we've had. But you plug him in there, he's 7th defenseman. I just don't see why not. But I do think that more than likely he will stay in Philly, especially if, let's say 2 of the 3 do get traded in some weird way. Sealer and Walker get traded. You have Mark Stahl there for some depth. I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
It will be interesting to see how this plays out. They have
a lot of questions.
They have guys in the AHL. Emil Andre made the team out of camp. They gave him a shot. Not ready, but he got his toes wet, and you have to believe him making the team means at least the coach believes in him.
Right.
And you have Ronnie Adder down there. There's a couple of guys who are kind of close. Adam Ginning has had his cup of coffee in the NHL before. Yeah, there's a number of dudes who might be worth a call up.
It's not bad, though.
We'll see how many defensemen they end up moving, but it could be somewhere between 1 and 4. Like it might be all of them. It might just be Sean Walker. We'll see. Someone I wanted to talk to Charlie about, but we didn't get the opportunity. He mentioned him briefly when talking about Ryan Poehling. Scott Laughton.
Another terrible
Scott Laughton
penalty.
is a good hockey player.
Yeah.
He has not been one this year.
No.
And with the emergence of Ryan Poehling, now I don't know if I'll ever trust him, like Charlie said, to play the up in the lineup minutes that sometimes Laughton has been trusted with. But he has a lot of tools. Clearly a good penalty killer. He can play wing and center for you. Has shown some signs of offense. He's a tremendous skater. Scott Laughton, to me, has gone from, you should probably just keep him because to we should try to get something for Scott Laughton now. He has worked himself into, and maybe you're selling low and you don't get the first round pick that you could have got for him at the draft and over the summer. Sometimes tough shit. You just trade a guy. Maybe he's someone with a change of scenery, could refine the form he had. It's just not going well for him this year, though.
Just really curious what the value is at this point because we all know he does everything on the ice. We all know he's a veteran leader that any locker room would love in this league. But, dude, these penalties, it's like, what is it you're thinking? Like here tonight, that tripping call.
It's just undisciplined. It's just not being focused enough.
But that's never been Scott's MO.
No, and that's when you are the only guy wearing a letter, you're the de facto leader of the team. Because of that, you're being paid $3 million, and the only reason they didn't trade you for a first-round pick is because you're the culture setter. You can't be the undisciplined one. And that's just like, sorry, man, the way it's no matter what on a high stick, well, guess what? You need to be in control of your stick. Bro, you need to be in control of where your fucking feet are. Like, don't trip the guy. All you had to do was, and they killed a penalty, and it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's these little things that just keep adding up, and little things have been Scott Laughton's game. Yes, he scored 18 goals last year. He's not an 18-goal scorer. Like, that's not who he is. And nobody trading for him was like, oh, we're going to get 15, 18 goals out of Scott Laughton. No, you're going to get 12 if you're lucky. But it's the little things that you want from him. The aggression, yes, but the not going to fuck up part. That's huge out of a bottom-of-the-lineup guy. Won't make mistakes. He is just making dumb mistakes right now.
And that's why I'm just wondering what that value exactly is for a guy like Scott Laughton, because you talk about a veteran leader with a letter on his sweater, but he's out here looking like Luis from the Mighty Ducks. Doesn't even know how to break.
Just stop. Just don't run straight into the guy. I really just don't understand what he was thinking there. Tomorrow we are off here at PHLY Flyers. We will be back for Saturday's game, though, so make sure you are here for post-game for that. Hopefully Charlie's mic issues are worked out. But JP and I will be here if nothing else, so we are looking forward to that. Do you have anything else tonight, JP?
No, listen, I know this wasn't a perfect game. You got to finish these games out, but these guys have a 2-game streak, not a winning streak from what I've learned here.
2 in a row. A winning streak starts at 3.
You got 2 in a row here. So I want to see we wanted to see how these guys would respond from the break. And so far through these first 2 tests look good. But you want to see them now in this 3rd game here that we're going to watch here on Saturday, have them finish a complete game, all 3 periods, and win convincingly, because I don't want Charlie to have a 60-second presser. No,
I need more info, man. I need more John Tortorella. There's very little chance of him saying something really entertaining. If the longer you have him up there, the better chance he has to say something ridiculous, and ridiculous John Tortorella quotes are what we're all here for, win or lose. I will say, grand scheme, you want to see them play well more than just like, okay, well, a win's a win. I guess we get away with that one. We saw how that went for the Eagles. And I was like, well, they won. They didn't play well. And then down the stretch, it was like, well, yeah, when you play like shit, you lose usually. Yeah. We saw that happen. But to me, right now, winning games is imperative because it keeps them in this is meaningful part of the season. The longer they can play meaningful games, I want to see them make the playoffs. Same. Badly want to see them make the playoffs. But the most important thing is that March and April aren't exhibition games. Yeah. It's not like, we're just playing because the rules say you have to play all 82.
That's right.
Yeah, I just want to see how these players that we're watching so intently respond. when they're in a playoff race, when they're playing these really meaningful games? Is Owen Tippett going to ascend to that next level? Can TK keep playing this way? Will Jamie Drysdale emerge as this team's number one defenseman? Just can Sam Ersson be the backstop of a playoff-bound team? Like, these are all so many things we won't find out if they just lose games like this. So I'm happy they won, and it keeps the meaningful games going, and I just hope Saturday against Seattle, man, I really want to beat Dave Hackstall. Like, I just hate losing to that guy. So they have Seattle on Saturday. We'll be back for that. But that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers tonight. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. Tonight's show presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. Make sure you're following us right here on YouTube. Set your reminders. Never miss a live show. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and PHLY Flyers wherever there are podcasts. My name is Bill Matz. For JP, for Charlie, have a great weekend, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.